how I realized something terrifying. Something most people don't notice until it's way too late. Let me ask you something real quick. Picture yourself at 80 years old. Your phone hasn't rung all day. The house is quiet. Too quiet. The chair across the table, empty. The question is simple, but brutal. Who's going to be there for you? Because experts are warning about something that almost nobody wants to talk about. Millions of people are growing older with absolutely no one to care for them. No kids visiting. No close friends left. No one checking if they even ate dinner. Sounds dramatic, right? Yeah, I used to think so too. Until I saw it happen up close. And trust me, once you see it, you don't forget it. So here's the story. A few years ago, I met a man named Frank, retired construction guy. Tough old school American dude. Wore boots everywhere, even to the grocery store. Frank had stories for days. Vietnam vet. Built half the houses in his town. Strong handshake, loud laugh. The kind of guy you think will always have people around him. But one afternoon, I noticed something strange. We were sitting in a diner, drinking bad coffee, and he said something that stuck with me. He looked down at the table and said, "Kid, you know what scares me more than dying?" I laughed a little. I thought he was going to say pain, hospitals, something like that. But he shook his head slowly. Being forgotten. That line hit like a punch to the chest. See, Frank had 3 kids. 3. And not one of them called anymore. They weren't bad people. Life just happened. Jobs moved them across the country. Grandkids grew up. Holidays got complicated. And suddenly the guy who used to host huge barbecues every summer was eating microwave dinners alone. That's when I started noticing something experts have been warning about for years now. Loneliness in old age isn't rare anymore. It's becoming the norm. Yeah, the norm. Researchers studying aging populations say something shocking. Nearly 1 out of every 3 older adults ends up facing serious loneliness. And loneliness isn't just emotional. It hits the body like a disease. Studies show chronic loneliness can increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, dementia, depression. Some experts even say it's as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15. Let that sink in for a second. But here's the crazy part. Most people think loneliness in old age happens randomly. Like bad luck. Like some tragic accident of life. But experts say that's rarely true. Most of the time, it's the result of small habits. Tiny decisions. Little things we do for decades without thinking about them. And those things slowly build a life where connections fade away. Let me break it down in real talk. A lot of people spend their whole life chasing success, careers, promotions, bigger houses, new cars. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with ambition. The American dream is built on that hustle. But somewhere along the way, relationships get pushed aside. Phone calls get shorter. Visits get postponed. Friendships fade. We'll catch up later, people say. But later sometimes never comes. I remember another moment that made this crystal clear. I was visiting a nursing facility once, just volunteering for a few hours. Nothing fancy. I expected it to be depressing, sure, but manageable. What I didn't expect was the silence. Not peaceful silence. The heavy kind. The kind where time feels like it's barely moving. I met this woman named Eleanor, 90 years old. Sharp mind, though. She grabbed my hand and started talking like we'd known each other for decades. At one point she said, half joking, half serious, "Young man, you're the first visitor I've had in 3 months." 3 months. Imagine that. 90 years of life. And nobody stopping by for 90 days. That moment messed with my head for weeks. And look, before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't about blaming families. Life today moves fast. Kids move to different states. Work schedules are crazy. Flights are expensive. The world changed. But that doesn't erase the reality older adults are facing. Experts call it the elder isolation epidemic. Sounds like something from a science fiction movie, but it's happening right now, everywhere. Here's the uncomfortable truth, though. A lot of people unknowingly prepare themselves for loneliness. Not intentionally, but through certain habits that slowly push people away. One big one? Pride. Yeah, pride. That stubborn idea that you shouldn't ask for help. A lot of older adults grew up in generations where independence was everything. Asking for help felt like weakness. So they stopped reaching out. They stopped calling. They stopped inviting people over. And slowly the world around them shrinks. Another habit experts point out is emotional distance. Some folks spend decades keeping feelings locked up tight. Never saying, "I love you." Never apologizing. Never showing vulnerability. That might seem strong in your 40s or 50s, but by the time you're 80, emotional walls become emotional prisons. People can't connect with someone who never opens the door. And then there's technology. Yeah, technology is amazing, but it's also creating a weird kind of distance. Families text instead of visit. Video call instead of sit in the same room. Social media creates the illusion of connection, while real human contact slowly disappears. For younger people, it's manageable. But for seniors who didn't grow up with it, it can feel like the world moved on without them. Now here's the twist that most people don't see coming. Loneliness in old age doesn't start at 80. It starts decades earlier. It starts when friendships aren't maintained, when neighbors stay strangers, when work becomes the only identity, when family gatherings get skipped too many times. The seeds are planted long before retirement. I remember talking to a gerontologist, basically, a scientist who studies aging, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, "Your social life at 80 is usually the result of choices you made at 40. That line stopped me cold, because it means the future isn't random. It's built piece by piece every single day. Let me ask you something again. When was the last time you called an old friend just to talk? Not text, not like a quick meme on Instagram. I mean, actually call them. Hear their voice. Laugh about old memories. If you're struggling to remember, that's exactly the problem experts are warning about. And here's the emotional part nobody talks about. People don't just fear dying alone. They fear being invisible. Imagine spending a whole week without someone saying your name, without someone asking how you're doing, without someone needing you. Humans aren't built for that kind of isolation. We're wired for connection. Always have been. But don't get depressed yet, because this story isn't just a warning. It's also a wake-up call. The good news is the future can change. Right now. Starting today. Because the opposite of loneliness isn't luck, it's intentional relationships. Real ones, messy ones. The kind where you show up even when it's inconvenient. Think about the strongest older people you know. The ones who seem surrounded by friends, family, laughter even in their 70s or 80s. Chances are they spent decades nurturing relationships, calling people back, showing up at birthdays, forgiving mistakes, staying curious about other people's lives. Those habits build a network that lasts. Let me go back to Frank for a second, the construction guy from earlier. A few months after that diner conversation, something interesting happened. He started making small changes, tiny ones. He began calling old buddies from his union days. At first, it was awkward. Some numbers didn't work anymore. Some people had passed away, but a few answered, and those calls turned into lunches. Those lunches turned into weekly poker nights. Slowly, the quiet house started filling with laughter again. Not every day, but enough to make a difference. One evening he told me, "Kid, I thought it was too late. Turns out, it ain't." That's the message experts want people to hear. It's rarely too late to rebuild connection, but it does require humility, effort, sometimes even a little courage. Another powerful strategy researchers recommend is staying involved in communities, churches, volunteer groups, hobby clubs, local gyms, book groups, anything that brings people together regularly. Because proximity creates familiarity, and familiarity often turns into friendship. Humans are funny that way, and here's something surprising. Helping others is one of the strongest protections against loneliness. Yeah, helping others. When people volunteer or mentor younger generations, they often build deep relationships that keep life meaningful well into old age. Purpose is powerful. It keeps people engaged with the world. But let's talk honestly for a second. A lot of people watching this might be younger, maybe in their 30s or 40s, maybe even 20s. You might think this conversation doesn't apply yet. Old age feels far away, almost imaginary. But experts say the habits you build right now will shape your future more than you think. The friendships you maintain, the family bonds you nurture, the kindness you show neighbors. Those things accumulate like interest in a bank account. And if there's one thing this whole topic teaches us, it's that relationships are the real wealth of life. Not the car in your driveway, not the number in your retirement account. Those things are useful, sure, but they don't sit next to you when you're scared in a hospital room. They don't laugh with you at 2 a.m. remembering old stories. People do that. Only people. So maybe the real question isn't, will someone care for you when you're old? Maybe the real question is, what kind of life are you building today that makes people want to be there? Because relationships aren't obligations. They're investments, emotional ones. And like any investment, they grow when you put time into them. Let me end with something simple but powerful. If there's someone you haven't talked to in a while, call them. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Tell them you were thinking about them. It might feel random, maybe even a little awkward, but small moments like that keep connections alive. I'd love to hear from you. Seriously, drop a comment and tell me what's one relationship in your life you're grateful for right now. And if this message made you think about someone who might be feeling alone, share this with them. You never know who might need the reminder that they matter, because at the end of the day, growing old doesn't have to mean growing alone. Not if we start caring about each other a little more today. So let me give you suggestion: build relationships intentionally. Call family regularly. Maintain friendships. Join communities. Offer help to others. And never assume you have unlimited time to reconnect with the people who matter. Because the strongest protection against loneliness in old age is the love and connection you build throughout your life.